Yes, we back again. Apologies for the founding father ass hair. I can't afford a cut right now. My stomach's a little uneasy. I believe I need to do a parasite cleanse and an egg cleanse to remove evil eye and maybe just a basic taint exfoliation. But not for right now. We're going at it currently. I had some subjects at hand today. We're delving into true tales of the macabre. Because I'm no stranger to clairvoyant tendencies. I've had numerous encounters with entities, skinwalkers, ghouls, and the like. So I'm going to, I will probably have to go chronological as best as I can there. But I'm going to share with you some ghost encounters, a UFO encounter, which I wish I were making it up because it makes my skin crawl to this day and makes me flaccid and causes shrinkage and but that's also caused by worrying about where my next check's coming from. Sometimes guys, like, you don't need to get on testosterone. You're just like, are you unemployed? Check that one, because I know what that's like. You don't get hard for like 4 months because you're like, well, I'm not making adequate paper right now, or you're like, oh my god, am I gay? Am I not attracted to my partner? No, you're just you need to stack a little bit of money and feel confident. But that's really not what I came here to speak about today. And then, I'm a man with tortoiseshell frame glasses who's lived in Philly, Chicago, Denver, L.A. I've had my fair share of run-ins with crack and meth heads, so we'll tie that in too. It's all under the same umbrella of spiritual warfare, if you will. Let me take a sip of Joe here. My mother was a clairvoyant woman. She had predictive dreams. She found herself attracted to strange items from flea markets that ended up carrying heavy energies. So dating back to childhood, I mentioned in a previous video, my mother and I, all she did was go to these flea markets in PA and thrift shops with me, yard sales. That's what we did. That's how we bonded. And then she'd like roam away mindlessly and leave me with abandonment issues. And then I'd be hugging on a strange woman's leg, thinking it's my mom. And she's like, "I'm not your mom." And then I'm like Kevin McAllister type shit. But this is when I'm maybe in the flea market tales or something. Some of these characters, my mother, I inherited this from her. She loved a good story and joking around in conversation. She talked to all these salt of the earth characters at these flea markets. We frequented this place, Jake's Flea Market. It was like, god damn, what town was it? Like Harleysville, PA or something off Route 100, rural PA. And that was the most authentic flea market imaginable. I'm not talking like these floofy farmers markets where people are selling $80 marmalade. I'm talking like men selling rusty screws and hissing at you and sticking the tongue through the gap of their teeth, like that type of flea market. And my mom called everyone what he sold, followed by guy. So there was bike guy, rock guy, etc. You had mixes of guys. This one dude I'll never forget, he had the typical table of like, rusted metal materials and old tools and things. And then on display, he had a picture frame. And in that picture frame was just a big clump of like blonde hair taped into the frame. So naturally, my mom had to go, "What's with the hair?" And the guy looks at her and goes, "Woolly mammoth fur." And he was very sincere, so it probably was. Or, let's not even imagine the other scenarios. But one day, I'm maybe around 12. At the time, I collected NBA cards, basketball cards. And I would, at the in those days, that was a haven for collectors. It'd just be guys selling stacks like they were nothing. Shit was not valuable at that point. So I'd always get some cards. And one guy sold me like a miscellaneous a clear case of cards. You didn't know like what was in there, how much was in there. So I got that case of cards. And then my mom's perusing another table, and she points out, "Ooh, a Ouija board. We used to play with these in nursing school." And this was not a Ouija brand Ouija board. This was a nice, colorful, like artsy looking purple, red box, and the game was titled The Psychic Circle. So my mom kind of briefly told me about her days having fun in nursing school with the gals playing with a Ouija board. Now this is the 60s. I know you, as I told you, my mother's old and her mind's gone. She's 76. So this is not like a woman in like the 80s or 90s playing with a Ouija board when we've had a laundry list of movies telling you the dangers of those, depicting dangers. She was like coming from a pretty naive place, like, "Oh yeah, we used to play with these in nursing school." So she bought the Psychic Circle, much to my father's dismay. When we get home, first thing we show my dad what we bought, and he's like, "I don't want that shit in my house." But we played with it anyway. We opened it up, and the Psychic Circle came with a big book of prayers, opening and closing prayers that you say. So my mother and I sit down to say one of these opening prayers. It's like, "God protect us from any evil entities that may make their way through. Keep our thighs moisturized, and may our pastures be green." I kind of freestyled that one, but you get the gist. And then we go into it. You put your fingers on the planchette. That's the centerpiece. It was just this nice circular clear piece. And I must say, I haven't messed with a Ouija in 15 years, probably more than that. And I refuse to, because I did have some negative experiences, but I did have the experience of, using the Psychic Circle for years, trying other Ouija boards, the one with that like cheap plastic piece with the clear circle center. And what I found was the Psychic Circle, the OG thing we used, that coasted on the board. You were never sure. You were never unsure as to whether or not you were communicating with something, because this thing flew around the board, and you'd be like, "Who has the smallest dick in the room?" And it'd be like, "DIE." And you're like, "Oh my God, this is a negative entity, and it won't spit the facts right now." That was a thing later on with, like, when you'd play with your buddies and your preteen boys, and you're just like, "Who's going to get pussy first?" And then it's like, KILL. And you're like, "We're receiving a message here." So my mother and I say the opening prayer. We do fingers on the planchette, and my mom's like, and this is my first time experiencing this. I'm like, I'm hopeful that we're going to be communicating with something and this board will be usable, but I have my doubts. And we're like, "Are we talking to someone?" And it immediately slides to yes, no problem. And I'm like, "Mom, are you moving that?" She's like, "Mike, are you moving that?" Neither of us were moving it. And we asked who we're speaking to. I forget. It's like, like Charles or whatever. We're like, "Hey, Charles." And he's like, "Hello." And then the first actual question, my mom peers over at the stack of miscellaneous football and basketball cards I had bought. And she's like, "How many cards are in that stack?" And it moves to 67. So I pull my hand off the planchette. I go to count. I'm like 64, 65, 66. And my face just goes pale. And I look at my mom, and her face goes pale. I'm like, "There's 67 cards in there." And that was my first Ouija experience, and why, for a short, morbidly curious period in my youth, I was fascinated by them. And I would get my friends to use the Psychic Circle, and some were doubtful. They would always be like, "Gursky, you're moving the piece, dude. Gursky, you're moving it. Also, stop eating all the bread in our cabinet. Please don't come over and eat all our sourdough." But I maintained, you are communicating with spirits from the other realm. some of them are negative, and you know that when they start moving around all crazy. You ask it a question, and it starts going to like crazy letters, and you're like, "All right, enough, dude. You're like a you're like a mentally disturbed child. We're gonna sit you in the corner a moment. We're gonna put you in a crate." But yeah, it was scary, and I share that to say that was my first real like macabre encounter where I'm like, oh, there's people other than humans out there. Then, now I've mentioned my abnormally old parents, so I didn't have grandparents after like age 10 or 11. But when my mom's father, Pops, died, we referred to him as Pops. He was an Irish drunk, but a very funny fellow. And I do have memories of Pops from when I was a young kid, but this is maybe like I was 10 or something when Pops passed, and my mother was very impacted by that. And this is shortly after Pops' passing. My mom and I are at Jake's, home of the psychic circle, and my mom's attracted to this oil painting of a hummingbird. Sorry, there was a strange voice. Maybe I shouldn't be revealing all this information. There's a woman calling me. I'm afraid of like a stringy haired Korean coming in on all fours. My mom gravitates towards this not particularly good oil painting of a hummingbird. I mean, it was cool, but I'm like, Mom, why are you buying that? And she's like, it reminds me of Pops. I'm like, is she losing it? I'm like, why does this hummingbird remind you of Pops? And she's like, look at the color of the bird. It's the color of his eyes. And it was this crystally blue, gray blue that I saw, and then I understood what she was saying. That was like Pops' eyes. So she brought that home, and she kept it in our living room, which was when you entered our home, like bottom of the steps. It's this room that no one ever sat in, where she just kept like, a nice couch and chairs and a bureau full of like my sister's artwork and other decorative pieces. But she kept the hummingbird photo that reminded her of Pops, the painting, in that living room. And then ever since that hummingbird entered that room, when I would get up in the middle of the night to like go down the stairs and get a drink of water or something, I would always peer into that room just cuz like you want to double check, make sure there's no burglars or anything. And every time I would look in that room, there would be this shadow silhouette of a man, like in a suit, wearing one of those kind of old guy paperboy type of caps. And the figure would start moving towards me, and I'd always run. And I didn't put it together immediately, but I remember like clearing out Pops and Annie's house and go seeing these old photos. And Pops was a salesman. He wasn't a sailman. Maybe he did sail. I know he tried to drown me a couple times, but he would always be in a suit with one of those caps. And I'm like, oh my God, that silhouette is Pops. Saying that to say, my mom keeps gravitating towards these uncanny items from Jake's. And now we're jumping years ahead. And this is when my mother's mind had been going from dementia. And I'm living away from home, but I'm back to visit. And my sister, her daughter, my niece, is 1 year old at this time. Keep in mind, my niece is 1 year old. She doesn't know a great deal of words or have much understanding. And I haven't seen my sisters in a little while. And my one sister mentions, did you show Mike the doll Mom bought my niece? And my other sister is like, oh my God, I thought I told you to throw that away. And I'm like, what? What doll did she get her? And this is when my mom maybe always had questionable decision making and cheap, not thought out gift giving. But it is unbelievable to me whether her mind was demented or not. It's very disturbing that this is what she chose. Because I'm picturing maybe like just a slightly creepy porcelain doll or some raggedy piece of shit. But I'm like, let me see the doll that mom got her. And my sister leaves and comes back with the most grotesque, disturbing toy I've ever laid eyes on. It is it's all stone. Like the body and head is stone with like straw terrible hair and straw limbs. And the eyes are just holes. Just holes into blackness. It's this stone doll with raggedy straw hair and just holes for eyes leading into like a black abyss. And I look at it and I'm like, oh my God. We're all like, what is she thinking? We knew her mind was going, and this was definitive proof right there. She went out back when her one friend would still come pick her up to take her to like thrifts and stuff before she had gotten too unbearable to be around. She thought she looked at this and was like, oh, here's a good cute toy for a 1-year-old baby. It looked like it had been dug up from the ground. And even though I'm very unsettled by this, skin crawling unsettled, I want to have some fun. So my sister's holding my niece, and I say to her, I turn to my niece with the scary doll. I'm like, who's this? And she looks at the doll and goes, dead girl. And we all immediately we really went white, and we're white people, but I'm talking like we turned pasty. Life left us, and immediately my sister's like, get this out of the house now. My niece is one. She knew very few words and certainly didn't know the concept of death. But she looked right at this doll that, I mean, if you have any common sense, you just look at this and you're like, that thing is at the very least haunted. But Madeline just looks at it and goes, dead girl. And that was for a litany of reasons really upsetting. It was upsetting that that doll would enter our home and be around my niece. It was upsetting that my mom would purchase that for a 1-year-old. But it only goes to show how she would my mother would gravitate towards these items that clearly carried a heavy energy. Those are the weird ghost tales tied to my mom. And I've had my own experiences and I'll walk right in someone's place and discern right away whether a place is haunted or musty. I'll be like, there's a spirit here, but it's not malevolent. Or I'll be like, yo, you got mold, clean this shit up. Now we're going to jump in the future and then go back to the past for this one. I am 28 at this point. So this was 2018, 2019. And my dad came to see my sister and I in Colorado. He had never visited. We never even thought he'd consider it. But my sister booked a night at the Stanley Hotel for us, which was kind of her to do. An experience I had longed for my whole life, being a horror guy, fan of The Shining. I had been up to Estes Park in the Rockies, and I had seen the Stanley and always been fascinated by it. And now we were getting to stay there. So we're pulling up for the evening to spend our night in the Stanley Hotel, as read about in Stephen King's The Shining. And in the parking lot, we're all excited, talking about ghastly encounters we may have. And now I should note, my father is not one for the goofiness. He's a practical guy. Like, yeah, he's he's not wildly religious, but something like the Ouija board when we were young, that just due to his faith and media and everything, he was like, get that shit out of here. But he's not one for like ghosts and ghouls, and certainly not aliens, and he'll look at the practical, he'll stay in the logical. But we're talking excitedly about what we're about to run into in the hotel. I'm like, I hope I see blood pouring out of crevices. And my dad brought up, he's like, and then the UFO Mike and I saw. And I was like, I didn't know what he was talking about. I'm like, what? And he could not believe it. He stopped in his tracks and he goes, oh my God, Mike, you're telling me you don't remember? And then it all came back to me, and goosebumps ran over my body. Not the paperback book. This isn't the Scholastic Book Fair where kids used to like fucking pound me over the head with paperbacks. I'm talking goosebumps on my body. And it all came back to me and scared the hell out of me. And I found it really curious and disturbing that this left my mind until my dad brought it back up to me. And now him and I talk about it every time we see one another. This was 2012. I had returned from my first university. My mom's mind was going. This was before my parents sold the childhood home. And I was drinking at the time, which I know, like, that could have impacted my memory or why I didn't recall it, but I think it is something deeper, something more sinister, because when I was reminded of it, it came back. And to this day, I wish I could give you more full, fun detail. My father could. Here's the thing. You have all these plans about what you're going to do seeing something. But when there's a close encounter and that close to home, it's horrifying beyond belief. And I'm kind of a pussy. This is 2012. I'm up in my bedroom, and I think I was drinking some cheap vodka alone. And I just hear this rumbling like thunder, and there's these crazy lights outside, and it scares me. And my dad yells up from downstairs, and he's not easily startled. He's a very, like, calm man. We have the same tone that's just, like, dry, droll, disinterested almost. He yells up from downstairs, Mike, get down here. And I'm like, what the hell? This must be something. So I get up and I go downstairs. Our backyard is a couple acres of just a big hill. And there's the start of the backyard is like one hill that's like a mound, and it kind of rounds off and flattens. And then there's more of a slant hill going up the rest of the way. So I go downstairs, look out the back door in the kitchen, and my dad's standing, arms folded, on the hill, just looking up at the house, eerily. So I go out to see what he's looking at. And I wish I were making this up. And it still disturbs me to talk about. But we're looking up at a saucer. A flying saucer. Hovering feet above our home. We're out there in the sticks in the mountains, rural PA. And it is where you'd see things. It's where one would expect to see things, and I have a laundry list of tales about weird shit that went on in the woods, some of it being more the tales of the unexplained, and then other things just like a methed-out farmer firing a shotgun at us. But this is, I didn't stick around and get long enough observance. But it is, like, comically spot on, like what you see in a 50s sci-fi film. Like, saucer, windowless, some lights emitting from it, and it's just hovering above the fucking house. And I'm scared as hell, and I said to my dad, Dad, what is it doing? And this again, my dad, not one for the hokey bullshit. I just won't forget him saying this. He looks at me and he goes, "They're watching us, Mike." And I screamed and ran in the house. I wish I had done more. I wish I had observed longer. I wish I had my phone. But again, you don't know until you're in a situation like that how you're going to react. And I was just scared beyond belief, like I never have been. And my dad stayed out there another like 15 minutes just watching until it hovered up and went away. And the morning after, I asked my buddies in the neighborhood if they had seen anything, and they're like, no. And then somehow that just left my memory until 7 years later when we're at the Stanley Hotel talking ghosts, and my dad brought it up. And now every time I think about it, it really makes my skin crawl. And I was always a big ghost guy because of my own experiences, because of my love for horror and ghost tales dating back to when I was a kid. That's what I was into, horror and sci-fi. But I wasn't an alien guy. And now I am. And I believe just about anything. And on that note, it's time to talk about some crackheads and meth heads. Don't look. There's nicotine use, which I don't endorse. In fact, I wish no one would ever vape, smoke cigs, dip, anything. Stay off these pouches, too. For me, they're just a healthy alternative. You would think, having lived in not nice parts of Philly, and like although I wasn't in really any hood in Chicago, I in like a neighborhood or two that weren't the greatest. You would think I would have had more issues, more threats of bodily harm in Philly than I would have Denver. But growing up, like what we were around in Philly, Allentown, Camden, Trenton, all the PA Jersey cities, it's more dominated by the heroin addict, which is a docile form of creature. You know, you had your PCP people who would like have their dicks out like blah, blah. But it was not until I got to Denver where you encounter more of the meth type of street wanderer, more of the meth type vagabond. And also, you're in a place like Denver where it is a lot of naive, fake empathetic whites who will let people walk all over them. So what that creates is a culture of these meth heads doing whatever they want. So I'm talking like blah, 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 just like everywhere you go. And because of that, I had some of my biggest scares in Denver, Colorado. Also, just some fun experiences. I'll never forget this one day walking back from a coffee shop. And this was a cinematic moment, a generically cinematic moment. There's a methy couple, older. There's a man just like trudging along, and seemingly maybe his girlfriend, wife, whatever she may have been. She is like sauntering, feet sliding behind him, maybe 30 feet, and she's wailing. She's wailing like a baby, but like a baby who ate a pack of Marlboros. Like, and the man looks back to her finally after listening to this a while, and he goes, "Why are you following me?" And she goes, "Because I love you." And I was like, that's beautiful. That's straight from a poorly written, made-for-TV movie, but it's not like a an attractive couple, to say the least. I thought that was beautiful for them, and I hope they stayed together for the right reasons. I worked at a Starbucks in downtown Denver which is not an appealing downtown. If you're familiar with Denver, this was the top of 16th Street. I don't know what the stats are today, but at the time, this was the highest traffic Starbucks in the state of Colorado, which is stressful as is, seeing just person after person, several hundred people a day. But also, if you're familiar with Denver, Colorado, you know that the Capitol building is just ridden with the wanderers, the vagabonds, the street people, the people with their penises out. And so I didn't have a car, and I'd have to walk Cap Hill at like 4 in the morning to go in for a 5 a.m. shift. And Denver is not a bustling city where people are out there getting to work like on the East Coast. So at that time, it's just eerie quiet, and you just hear like the distant sound of a rickety shopping cart, like, and of course this man starts weed whacking. And I'm very confused in the city of Los Angeles by the amount of weed whackers going. There's no grass here. Nobody has lawns. They have turf yards. Why are you weed whacking the dirt, bro? What are you doing, trimming a succulent? I'm confused by this. Hopefully it's not picking up too much on the mic. Maybe it adds to atmosphere here. But so needless to say, just on my walks to Starbucks at 4 in the morning, it would be terrifying. And I'd be vigilant, no music playing, just like, I don't know, ready to battle a skinwalker at any moment, ready to defend myself from a pair of scissors. And this job at the top of 16th Street Starbucks. 16th Street is Denver's idea of like what Times Square is. They're like, oh, here's businesses, but it's just chain businesses. And even through the time elapsed when I was in Denver, when I first moved there, 16th Street, I was like, hey, this isn't half bad. This looks like the East Coast. And there was plenty of normal people going about their day, like people who work downtown, just people shopping. But by the time I left Denver years later, it was just the people with the soiled duvet covers walking around like, hey, here's you. He sees you. And my job at that Denver Starbucks was just meth patrol. It was just meth patrol. I worked with a bunch of gals, and I didn't want them in danger. So my job became, you'd have to wake people up nodding off. You'd have to kick people out of the bathroom who were all day just smoking crack and meth. And through that job, I learned to differentiate the scents. I'm like, oh, that's meth. Oh, that's heroin. Like, you could tell what people were smoking because that's all our bathroom was used for. So it was a lot of defending myself and my employees against characters. One gal I worked with, a young gal, just got hit with a lead pipe in the back of the head one day when she's changing the trash. She was kind of rude. Not to the person who hit her with the pipe. I'm just saying maybe there's, I don't know. I'm looking for some karmic justice so it's not purely dark. But one of my favorite people who walked in there, I used to just primarily work mornings, but the one night I had to work an evening, and I'm like, why are we doing this? No one's in here working. They're in here, like, assembling tools to do God knows what. It just smelled like a shelter, because it was. And that's what most Starbucks are. But the one night, this man walks in. He's like a Latino guy, but he comes in a sleeveless shirt with the American flag on it, flat brim, of course. And he comes in, he storms in on a mission, and he walks into the lobby to make his announcement. He's like, I'm about to get really real with y'all. And I'm like, I can't wait for this. And he's like, which one of y'all telling the police I'm gay? And he goes on this rant about how us, the people, we've been telling the police he's gay. And now the police have it out for him. And he goes on his rant like, which one of y'all telling the police I'm sucking? And after he finishes his rant, I have to hold myself back from going, "Get out of here, you homo." But I keep it shut, and he does wander off. Thankfully, doesn't harm anyone. We may have to take a break if this shit continues. This dickhead out here, fucking mowing the sediment. I have no idea what's going on. Unbelievable. I didn't even get to the best of the tales yet. And we're back with it after that brief break. I think he finished mowing the gravel out there, and we should be good. We're still in Denver, but I'm going back before the Starbucks days. The Denver Light Rail. It's a modern, seemingly nice form of public transit. It's about the only form out there. Now, what really strikes me as particularly crazy about this evening, this trek, it is not a Monday night at 1 in the morning. This is a Sunday at maybe around 7 p.m. I had been in Denver about a month and a half or something, and I'm at my buddy Mike's house. He was a coworker of mine. I'm kind of newly back into smoking weed after being sober from alcohol, break from weed, and mind you, I'm smoking Colorado weed at altitude. So anytime I would puff, when I started puffing again, I'm just like I'm seeing government surveillance, you know? So I'm already pretty paranoid, but it's like 7 o'clock. I'm leaving Mike's house, and I get on the light rail to go back home. And when you're at like one of the main pickup stops, it doesn't just you don't get on and go. They wait till the train's scheduled to leave. So I sit down high and just settle into my seat. And then I look around and I observe, I'm the only person on this train who doesn't look like a garbage pail kid. It's just seedy characters all around. The seat in front of me is an unlikely duo, but you know meth, it brings people of all kinds together. It is like an older man, like a weathered older man, and then a kid who looks like Sid from Toy Story next to him, like 19, and he has head shaved except like spiked up mohawk, and they're holding a box of just various metal objects. I'm like, what do you need a bear trap for, you guys? What's with the bear trap and the hacksaw? And I'm like, oh my God, I am the only person on here not on meth. And I'm so paranoid and high, I'm afraid to get up and go. Like, I don't want to make a scene in that. Or them, at this point, I was still so weak, I didn't want them to be like, that's a judgmental young man. So I waited out a little bit, and then when I finally, the fear is sinking in, and I'm like, I can't be trapped on this box car with the garbage pail kids. I get up, and that's when the noise, doors closing, and I'm trapped. And this whole ride back, there's a man, if I'm sitting this way, he is like diagonal to me up towards the front of the train, and he is staring at me hunched over, not breaking eye contact the whole time. And I'm doing everything to not look at this guy. I'm like looking at the cyst on my chest, like observing outside, and he's just like chewing on nothing, leering at me, doesn't break eye contact. We start nearing my station, Colorado Boulevard. And I get up to just, get a head start. And that's when he starts up saying things. After staring at me this whole ride, I get up to start walking towards the exit. And he's like, hey, nice fucking pants, buddy. Nice fucking pants, you fucking... And then he, of course, brings out the F word. The baguette. Well, we can't say it, I don't think. But he's like, nice fucking pants, baguette. Yeah, nice fucking pants, buddy. He's like compelled by my pants. And then, as I near the exit and we're pulling up, he goes, yeah, you better fucking get off the fucking train. and he gets up and just starts sprinting at me. And I sprint off, and it's not uncrowded there. There's people around. Of course, no one does anything. It's Denver, full of fucking spineless pussies. But I just sprint, and there's a huge set of steps to go from the station up. And he's chasing behind me the whole way. Luckily, I'm very quick, and no one does anything. I get up and I have to cross Colorado Boulevard, which is like it's like 8 lanes, and I just sprint across Colorado Boulevard by the Dave and Buster's. I live behind a Perkins and a La Quinta Inn. Wasn't exactly the nicest spot, needless to say. And I didn't look back from like running up the steps, running across the highway, running past Perkins, La Quinta. I didn't have time to look back. I just kept going, and I lost him at some point. But that man chased me every step of the way. Now, in his defense, I was wearing jeggings. They were like men's Forever 21 jeans but they had like the sweatpant cuff at the bottom. I didn't think they were that bad. They weren't even particularly tight. It's not something you'd notice. It's maybe something like an Arab kid working at a mall kiosk would be wearing. But it infuriated him to the point that he felt like he had to take my life. He just wasn't quick enough. So Denver is where I had the most fearful encounters. Philly, I had some entertaining ones. Now here's a classic in Philly. I'm Center City at this. I have a job interview for a suit shop. So for the interview, they want to meet me at this it's like an indoor small mall in Center City. There's one area that's like a coffee shop with tables, and then a little mall area. So I do my interview down at this cafe, and then I have to go to the bathroom before I hop on the bus back. And to get to the bathroom, you go up an escalator, and it's a mall food court. And I'm walking into the bathroom, and outside the bathroom is a man cracked out in a metallic puffer coat. And he's just, looking cracky, a lot of quick movements, talking to himself. But he's just standing outside the bathroom, seemingly not bothering anyone. I go in to use the bathroom. There's 2 urinals. They're both taken. What does a man do when both urinals are taken? You just go pee in the stall. So thinking nothing of it, I go into this bathroom stall to pee. I finish up. As I open the stall door, both urinals are now unoccupied. Those guys have finished their business and gone. And who's in the bathroom but cracked out guy in metallic puffer coat? And he's arms crossed, foot tapping, upset, looking at me. And he looks at me and he points at the urinals. And he goes, "You know that's what these are for, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "So use them instead of pissing in the toilet like a little dirty-ass bitch. You don't give a fuck about black people, you little racist-ass bitch." That was all just his quick monologue. I didn't have any time in between to, rebuttal and explain, "Hey, the urinals were occupied, buddy." But that was his train of thought, going from man pissed in urinal, or man peed in toilet stall. He doesn't give a shit about black people. And, you're not going to have a rational socio-political argument with that guy. And I'm a man who I'm pretty obsessive compulsive with the germs. I couldn't wash my hands at that time. I had to just skate on out of that bathroom. And, he kind of followed, not dangerously, but followed, still mumbling, like, "You don't give a fuck, you little racist ass bitch." And maybe he was on to something. Maybe I do have to check myself. I should read a novel written by a black woman that's like, "White people, you stupid." Something like that. Maybe educate myself a little bit Or maybe there's also something deeper I'm not aware about within the black community. I'm clued in some regards, but this being in the toilet thing, being a racist notion, who knows? Who knows? And as if that weren't enough, I rode the bus back home, and this bus was always packed. I don't know if it was the 63 or it was running down Germantown Ave. And I'm up in the front, and right beside me is this woman, and I feel terribly sorry for her because she's gone. She's just sitting in the front seat the whole time talking, but I was kind of compelled by what she was saying to herself. The whole time she's like, I ain't sucking no dick, motherfucker. I ain't fucking and sucking no dick, motherfucker. But like a horror show. And I kind of just had to look and pretend, like, not, I had to not look and pretend as though that wasn't going on. But I was still kind of like high blood pressure from the man telling me I'm a little racist ass bitch. And now I gotta witness this, which is just, it's just peak surreal horror. There was another occasion on a Philly bus where this man, he had the nerve, he didn't pay his bus fare. So this poor bus driver lady had every right to like tell him like, hey, ride one more stop, whatever, just like you should pay. But that ride just stood in the back of the bus on the phone. I don't know who he's talking to. And the whole time he's like, yeah, this bus driver needs some dick in her life. She needs some penis. That's why she's so angry. She needs some penis. And he kept repeatedly saying that. He was convinced she was mad he didn't pay his fare because she needs some penis in her life. And after he said dick once, it was then penis from there on out. And I think it's pretty funny to have that attitude and be that harsh and audacious, but then go for like a general medical kid term like penis. Yeah, she needs some penis. That's the problem. And it's like, no, sir, the problem is you did not pay your bus fare. And she was good enough to just let you go. And now you're going to stand here the whole time talking about how she needs penis. Now in Chicago, I wish there was something more light or funny to report, you know? Just like watching a man snort something, smoking a black and mild, puffing it in your face. There was one occasion, packed train, red line. If you're in Chicago, from Chicago, you're familiar with the red line. And this man had not just like a little JBL. He had the big guy. He had like one of those big JBLs. No, wait. I'm getting confused. I'm giving this man more credit than he deserves for his sanity. You might recall that song, and I can't remember the artist's name. It was a guy from New York. It was like 2015 era, where he's like, "Leave me alone." You know that. Some of you might know that song. And this is years after that song was popular. But there is like a cracked out guy, packed train, and the whole time he just keeps going, "Leave me alone." And that's the only part of the song he knows. He keeps repeating it. And other people are scared because they're maybe unfamiliar with the tune. But I knew the song, and I look over at like another guy, and we're kind of like laughing to each other because we're like, this is a funny rendition of the song, which is like out of tune as is. So as silly as this man sounds, it's like it's not a bad cover of the song, and it's not playing or anything. He's just like, "Leave me alone." Loved that one. And then since coming to LA, I must be spiritually protected. Because, yeah, people call me fag, people growl at me, but for the most part, I haven't really been bothered too much. And I don't drive. I'm the only guy on the sidewalk not dragging around a soiled bed sheet, foaming at the mouth. But it's been, for the most part, pretty okay out here. We won't talk about the energy again.